Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 125 of the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. Well, I seem to say this a lot, but it does seem to be a bit of an understatement that there's a lot of hot topics around the property market at the present time. Melbourne, I would say, has been up, down, round and about and doesn't really know where it stands in recent times. It's probably been more down than up, unfortunately. But there's been a number of factors involving that. So what I thought we could do today is have a bit of a discussion around the factors that are impacting the market, legislation changes and other factors that we've seen, and also how they're impacting it. So what is that doing to the marketplace? Why is it impacting it? And how is the market looking to perform at the present time? Now, I'll go through these bit by bit. Obviously, the first one, and one that we mentioned recently in a podcast that I had Jarrod and Telfer on with me, was around negative gearing and capital gains tax. There's probably been a bit more clarity around that now compared to when we had that discussion. So the Parliament has now ticked off the negative gearing and capital gains tax changes. And certainly at the time when we spoke last time, the uncertainty was definitely there because it wasn't necessarily definitely going to go through, likely, but not necessarily. Whereas now it has all been ticked off. And what that's done is it's led to those that were intending to buy established residential property. They need to consider their position because obviously things have changed pretty significantly and decide how that's going to impact their decision making. And that's things like, is it still the right strategy, given that there is no longer the negative gearing benefits, and so that can impact on a number of factors. So does it mean that it's still justified for you to buy a property? Or perhaps should you look to pivot? Now, obviously, the negative gearing benefits are still there for an off-the-plan purchase. Most of you will know my thoughts on that, but there is the opportunity to buy brand new property if the negative gearing is the be-all and end-all for you. Commercial property is another option that people are considering and whether or not that should be something. But also, just generally, how is the borrowing capacity going to impact any decision? So if you do decide that you still want to proceed with purchasing an investment property in the established market, well, how is that going to impact on what you are going to be able to spend? So there's a lot of things that need to that are impacting on the market and certainly confidence levels. And if you put that on top of the fact that first home buyers at the moment are very nervous, and they're very nervous at the best of times because they're always looking for social proof to see what the market's doing. And if they see others being involved and being positive, then they tend to follow that lead. But they're seeing less confidence around at the moment. When they attend open for inspections and auctions, there's nowhere near the numbers that were there last year or earlier this year, both at the inspections and at the auctions in terms of competition and competing. And these factors obviously then mean that if those numbers are down, the confidence is down. And so that leads to first home buyers starting to doubt themselves and wondering whether it's the right time for them to be making these decisions as well. So what these facts mean is it's now clear that the negative gearing has been removed. And so has the index nature. The 50% discount's now being converted to the indexed side of things from a capital gains tax perspective. The one thing it does do is it now gives certainty, whether it's a positive thing or not. It gives you clear clarity that this is the circumstances, these are the conditions that I'm now working within. So I can now make a decision as to whether or not that's something that I can work with, or no, that impacts me too negatively. I'm going to look at an alternative. So people can at least make decisions around and feel confident that they're making it with that knowledge at this point in time. The other factor that's probably come to light, which wasn't part of the discussion that we had a month or so ago, was around self-managed super funds. Now, as part of the arrangements between the Greens and the current Labor government, in order to be able to get the negative gearing capital gains tax changes through, the Labor government had to make an agreement to close the door on borrowing to purchase residential property through self-managed super funds. So the slight difference here compared to, say, the negative gearing and capital gains tax is that there is still a small window in order to be able to borrow. So the loans will be banned 45 days after the legislation receives royal assent, which has now occurred. And my understanding is that means they'll be banned from the 10th of August. So up until that date, contracts can still be exchanged and loans will be honoured. So we have seen over the past couple of weeks an increase in inquiries for people wanting to buy established property and self-managed super funds. It's not being overrun. It's not a massive influx, but we haven't been seeing a lot of inquiry for self-managed super fund borrowing purchases for a number of years. And there had been some slight increases in discussions had earlier in the year. but it was a notable increase in the last couple of weeks. Most of the people, though, that have been having those discussions and calling this have been planning this for a little while, and this has just brought it forward because it was unexpected. So people are looking at that as an option and seeing whether or not that's something that they would do. Certainly our advice to them has been, look, if we can do something great and you want to do it, it forms part of your strategy, but only if we can still find the right property. We can't be just racing to get this done for the sake of it, just to get these benefits if you're buying the wrong property. So it's still always about that asset selection side of things. Another interesting development that I've noticed in the last week or two has come more on a state government or state parliament level, I should say, because it was some of the suggestions around property that the opposition has made should they be successful at the election later in the year. They're talking about raising the land tax threshold. So at the moment, the minimum is 50,000, which we've spoken about in the past. That was dropped significantly from around 300, 350. So the opposition is talking about increasing that. So that would mean that less properties would fall into the land tax requirement. And they're also talking about abolishing the short stay accommodation tax. Now, I don't think either of those is going to make a dramatic difference on values or activity within the marketplace, but certainly the land tax one will help take some of the pressure off more existing investors who have been feeling the pinch, and certainly it'll be a nice change for some of them who've felt as though it's been death by a thousand cuts, and it would be nice if that did occur, that there's some benefits going to them as opposed to negative impacts, which has certainly felt the case for the past sort of 18 months. The other one from a state government perspective, which is being put forward from a legislation point of view at the moment, is disclosed reserves. So the state government is introducing legislation to Parliament preventing a home from being sold by auction unless the reserve price is published at least a full 7 days prior to the auction. Otherwise, it can't be sold by that method. So the objective here is to prevent buyers from wasting time and money on pursuing properties where the reserve price doesn't line up with the quoted price. So is typically in excess of what the quoted price is. And so buyers feel as though they're wasting time and effort on that. Now, the legislation's not it's only a proposal at this point in time, so it's not necessarily having any direct impact on the market, and it's probably unlikely to directly impact and impact on values of properties. But the concern from my perspective here is more around these government changes are likely to have unintended consequences, and I think will have a negative impact for a lot of buyers too. And this is a personal thing, but I do think that here in Victoria, we don't really, in a lot of circumstances, understand how good we've got it with the auction process. It is, although you may not necessarily agree with this in all circumstances, it's a transparent way to buy property in the sense that you get to eyeball everyone that you're bidding against, and you can see how much they're bidding, you can choose how much you want to bid, and you know that you're competing against a directly a real person. Whereas what I feel could very well happen with this new process is that you'll start to see, and we've already had a lot of discussions with agents, that they'll convert properties to private sale and they just won't go down the auction path. Or they'll convert to expressions of interest where they can control things a little bit more. And the problem with that is that you'll then have to take the agent's word that when they say to you, I've got another buyer that's ready to buy this property, you've got to take their word that yes, they do, or no, they don't. And you won't get the transparency of, am I actually competing against a genuine person, or is it just the agent telling me that? And I do think that that's a real issue that people are going to not feel as comfortable about. It can be unnerving, don't get me wrong, for people to have to stand up and bid at an auction, but I'd much prefer to do that than have to get into a private sale negotiation where I don't get the transparency that I would really, and my clients, once they understand it, really appreciate and understand why it's of great benefit to them. So everyone is disappointed. It doesn't matter when you have an auction process. And I think this is the big thing, is that people are obviously really disappointed when they miss out. And if a property soars past a reserve price and sells at a much higher level, you're going to be disappointed that you've missed out. But I don't think the disclosed reserve is going to prevent that from happening, because more often than not, that's buyer-driven, it's not agent-driven, and it's not vendor-driven. I've got a great example of what I think is going to happen in the case studies later on in the podcast, so I'll run that through with you then. But I just don't think this disclosed reserve is going to have the desired effect of preventing buyers from wasting time on properties, because I think they'll still soar past reserve prices even with disclosed reserves. The next one that's not necessarily having an impact on market activity, but is certainly something that you need to be aware of from a market perspective, is the new anti-money laundering legislation that has come into effect as of the 1st of July this year, 2026. So under federal requirements, certain services within the real estate industry now require you to complete a level of client due diligence before being able to actually commence the service. So this includes things like verifying client identity checks, verifying entities involved in acquisitions and disposals, assessing the risk of money laundering or terrorism financing, and certainly other elements as well. So, as I said, I don't think it'll have a direct impact on the market, but I do think it's a really positive thing. It's probably surprising that it's taken this long in Australia for something along these lines to come into effect. Anyone who's taken out a loan or gone into a bank and set up bank accounts, you usually have to do this sort of identification checks. And the real estate industry, and I think it's more so in accounting and conveyancing and solicitors as well, are also going through it. So it's definitely a good thing. So with all of those comments and things said, how is this affecting the property market at present? Well, I can tell you that it's very quiet at the moment. Now, part of that is certainly to do with the fact that we're in the middle of winter. We're coming out of the school holiday period. So that always has a downward impact on the property market. There's always less activity, certainly around the supply side of things, but it doesn't always have as much of an impact on clearance rates, which I'll get to shortly. But certainly if we look at the market over the last 18 months through 2025 with the three interest rate cuts that we experienced, the market started to definitely show signs of life, and there was starting to be some improvements. The median dwelling price, started to increase and show some positive signs, which was great to see. The supply level was reasonably healthy without being over the top when we compared 2025 to previous years. So that was also a good thing as well. And the clearance rate as a result of that hovered around the sort of 65 to 75% range, depending upon the time of the year and the supply levels at that point in time. As we've spoken about, usually through the spring it comes back a little bit. But there was positive signs, and the market was certainly heading in the right direction, which was great to see after an extended period of flat times. But then, obviously, towards the end of last year, things started to change. Obviously, the tension on the war in the Middle East started to build, and that led to inflation issues, particularly around fuel. And the Reserve Bank then started to talk more about interest rate increases rather than further cuts, which was initially what was expected. And so if you combine that with the unexpected budget announcements that came into play around May this year, any confidence that had been building through last year evaporated really, really quickly. The supply levels actually started to increase, and that was off the back of investors just getting to the point of throwing their hands in the air and saying, we can't continue to deal with this, and so putting properties on the market. And the clearance rate really started to fall dramatically. So we've gone from, at the start of the year, being in the sort of mid-60s down to in the low 50s at the present time, and that's on an average weekly rent per month. But it's been below 50% on a number of occasions in recent weeks as well. And that comes as you have to remember, as we've spoken about in the past with clearance rates, is that includes properties that pass into a genuine bid and sell after the auction. So not a lot of confidence in those, or only limited buyer numbers, but it also means that you're not selling 45, 50, early 50s under the hammer. So there's certainly a weakness in the market at that point as well. And as a result, median house and unit prices have both come backwards this year as well. Now, if we look at the rental side of things, there's not as much of a dramatic change either way on the rental front. Median dwelling rents are up around 5% over the last 18 months, which is not anything significant or notable, but it's certainly more positive, obviously, than negative. The vacancy rate is certainly continuing to tighten. It was around 1.6% towards the end of last year, and it's come into 1.3% at the moment. Now, if that vacancy rate does continue to tighten like that, then I would expect that rents will continue to rise. And if they tighten further and further, then it might increase at a greater rate. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on and watch. But as I said, overall, the confidence levels have certainly dropped significantly this year off the back of the Middle East and the interest rate rises rather than further cuts. And then obviously the budget compounding things. And I haven't even really gotten into the discussion points around the activity centres and things which we've spoken about before, because I feel as though, even though there's been a lot of discussion around, that'll be the way that construction will improve and we'll get more dwellings built, I just don't see that developers are going to have the confidence to build more build-to-sell properties in the current market when construction costs are going up and up and up, but the values of the properties aren't. So if the margin's not there, developers aren't going to build more properties. Now, that might help from a value proposition if there's less supply, but it certainly isn't going to help the government meet their construction requirements or targets that they've been laying out over recent times. So look, it's a really interesting time. The market's not overly confident at the moment. Great time for those that perhaps are looking to upgrade from a, particularly in sense of a family home. So if you're something smaller and wanting to get into larger, obviously if you can buy a better property at a lesser price, and yes, you might take a bit of a hit on yours, but the margin should tighten a bit. So it is a good time to upgrade if you're in that sort of position or considering that. So something to think about anyway. Now, as I said earlier, today's case study, I've got an example around the disclosed reserve scenario. Now, obviously it's not in play as yet. As I said, legislation's just in Parliament at the moment, but we did have a very recent scenario last month where an example of the new laws came into actually played out in the market. There was a house for sale in the inner north that was going to auction. It was originally quoted at 1.3 to 1.4 mil, and the campaign went really well. It was very strong for the first couple of weeks. I'm not sure whether they had an offer or not, but the agents decided to just put a fixed figure reserve on the property and advertise it at 1.5 mil and go through to auction. Now, the auction was very competitive. They had a lot of people bidding at it. And in the end, it sold for over $1.9 million. Now, clearly the 1.3 to 1.4 was a very conservative and light quote, and it should have been at a higher level. But the new legislation is not going to change that either. So by disclosing the reserve at $1.5 million, those that thought they were still a chance to buy it at around that sort of level would have been blown out of the water with the eventual sale price. So this is my point around whether or not it's actually going to be of benefit to buyers. I don't believe it is, because any buyer would still have spent a lot of time, effort, money getting contract checks done, building inspections done on this campaign, only to not have been any realistic chance to buy it when it sells at $1.9 million. So my concern is that I don't feel as though the idea is to stop the scenario where, in this instance, as an example, the reserve gets disclosed at 1.5 mil. You can't then have a reserve up at a higher level, but that's not going to help in this scenario. It's not going to change it. So anyway, that'll be a really interesting one to watch, and it'll be certainly interesting to see, because it comes in as of the 1st of, if everything's approved, as of the 1st of October this year. So it will be interesting to see what happens during the spring months, to see whether or not the auction numbers are impacted and how scenarios play out, and what tactics are used by agents in terms of going through these campaigns. Anyway, thanks very much for joining me. That's episode 125 of the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. Please subscribe to all of our social media channels, particularly YouTube, and follow us on whatever podcast channel you choose to subscribe to. Otherwise, if you need further information, visit our website, wakelin.com.au. Otherwise, we wish you all the best with your property decisions.